I'm Sam Mustafa.
On tonight's episode of Sco Buff Sports, we'll get you caught up on these past weeks in CU sports. Some team seasons came to an end, some are in the midst, and some are just getting started. On an unrelated note, have you been watching the Masters, Sam?
Yes, I have. Hoping to see Tiger inching up the leaderboards. Let's get back to campus, though, and discuss the Buffs, starting with basketball. With March Madness coming to a close, it was only a matter of time until we'd see who would be heading to the NBA draft or playing out their college eligibility. On the men's side, CU star player Jabari Walker has thrown his name into the 2022 draft while enforcing his remaining eligibility. The 6'8", 200-pound forward put up impressive numbers for the Buffs, excelling in assists and defending the paint, as well as being a pretty good shooter. Walker recently was named the recipient of the Chauncey Billups Award as CU's most valuable player. He is projected as a second-round pick and is ranked number 50 on the 2022 top prospect rank. Walker didn't experience a lot of time playing his freshman year, but was still impressive in getting shots up with the limited time he had. As a starter his sophomore year, Walker was able to put up bigger numbers and dominate defensively, which allowed more attention from bigger teams. On the women's side, standout Maya Hollingshed is among those who will be entering the 2022 WNBA draft. The 6'3" forward from Houston, Texas, stayed back to compete with the Buffs one last time this past year before recently declaring for the upcoming draft. Hollingshed was an honorable mention for all Pac-12 teams. She also received the prestigious Wooden Award for the top 50 watch list. We wish both Walker and Hollingshed the best of luck here at SBS as they look to continue their basketball careers at the professional level.
CU is losing some familiar faces in the lineup for the upcoming basketball season. In the transfer portal alone, there are 920 athletes listed. Todd Boyle mentioned that Keyshawn Bartholomew, a sophomore guard, is expected to play the remainder of his college eligibility elsewhere. For the Buffs, Bartholomew was a top 3 scorer who averaged 11 points over 33 games. His starting spot was taken over by Julian Hammond in the last 5 games of the last season. Another loss for CU came back in early February when Eli Parquet announced he would not be returning with the program. Parquet stayed with the Buffs for the full 4 years and looks to become a veteran transfer. Despite being injured majority of the senior season with a foot injury, Parquet is considered a very tough defender as well as being named Pac-12 All-Defense his junior year. This opens up room for the Buffs to revise their lineup for the upcoming season. New faces such as R.J. Smith and Joe Hurlbert look to join this summer. 3 scholarships will remain open with the exception that Walker is picked up in the 2022 draft.
Spring football has sprung. After various off-season pickups on the player and coaching fronts, new and returning members are showing their skills at spring practice. Spring practice began last Wednesday. Head coach Carl Durrell was pleased with the competitive performances from the newcomers and the veterans. He said Brendan Lewis, quote, doesn't look like a rookie anymore, noted wide receiver Ty Robinson's 40-yard play, and mentioned new cornerback Jason Oliver's ability to make plays. JT Shrout is getting his reps in as he heals from his knee injury. He said he took on a coaching role last season. Now, he's providing passes to the old and new Buffs receivers. Former LA Chargers receiver coach Phil McGagan has been working with the CU receiving group. Previous Baylor Bear RJ Sneed is showing to be a great leader. Also, Daniel Arias is making strides this spring, working hard on the field and in the classroom, according to McGagan. Tight ends coach Clay Patterson is working collaboratively with offensive coordinator Mike Sanford. They previously worked at Minnesota together, and they are hoping to advance the Buffs offense. New offensive lineman Tommy Brown scored an NIL deal this offseason, and it caught the attention of his fellow players and new offensive line coach Kyle Devon.
Oh yeah, no, I saw him. He looks good. It was amazing. I saw the video, I saw the pictures. It's a funny world we live in.
Held their pro day in March, where 6 Buffs hopeful to compete at the next level were able to put their skills on display. The players who participated included star linebacker Nate Landman, tight end Matt Lynch, linebacker Carson Wells, defensive end Mustafa Johnson, offensive line Kerry Kutch, and inside linebacker Akil Jones. There were times taken by 13 NFL teams at pro day, including the Denver Broncos, New England Patriots, and more. In total, 22 scouts were present, accompanied by 2 recruiting services personnel and 3 agents. Landman didn't partake in the 40-yard dash, vertical jump, and broad jump, as he competed in those drills on March 5th when he attended the NFL Combine. Defensive end Mustafa Johnson also didn't partake in those events, plus the 3-cone drill and the 20-yard shuttle. Wells clocked a 4.56 in the 40-yard dash, a solid time for an outside linebacker of his stature, and right where he wanted to be. As he said that was his goal, to run anywhere from a 4.55 to a 4.62. The other 40 times were 4.71 for Lynch, 4.86 for Akil Jones, who last played for Colorado in 2020, and 5.19 for offensive lineman Kerry Kutch, who measured at 6'4", 297 pounds. Kutch and Johnson put up an impressive tally on the bench pressing, as the two both repped out 225 29 times. Landman finished with 20 reps, Jones and Wells with 16, and Lynch finished with 11. Kutch and Johnson's numbers on the bench press can help boost their stock, as being able to get to 29 reps shows an immense amount of strength that is crucial to be able to play at the offensive line at the next level, something that these scouts like to see. All 6 of these buffs are hoping to hear their name called later this month at the NFL Draft, which will take place April 28th to 30th in Las Vegas.
All right, Buffs fans, let's test your knowledge with some football trivia for this week's trivia question. Which year were the most Buffs football players drafted in the NFL Draft? Is it A, 1995, B, 1976, C, 2003, D, 1975? We'll give you some time to think about it, so stick around until the end of the show for the answer. Don't go anywhere. Last weekend, the women's lacrosse team took down the Cal State Golden Bears on their home turf, walking away with a strong 17-9 triumph. With a 9-3 record, they remain nationally ranked in every Division I poll for the sport. Currently, they sit at the 25th spot, tied with Arizona State. They will have a chance to climb up next weekend when they play both USC and ASU in front of a home crowd. Both of these teams are also in the top 25, so a couple wins there could take the Buffs to the next level as they continue with Pac-12 conference play.
The men's club lacrosse team also has some high-stakes games coming up soon. Their final road trip of the season is this weekend, when they head on down to Texas to hopefully scoop up some wins. And when they return, the biggest game of the year is underway. The men close out their regular season with a huge rivalry game against Colorado State at home. They haven't lost a game to the Rams since 2013, and they hope to keep that long streak of wins going. Unlike football, this Rocky Mountain Showdown is always a close and exciting game, so be sure to make it out.
The CU women's tennis team hosts their final 2 matches this week. The squad is taking on number 20 ranked Arizona State Sun Devils as we speak, and will take on number 49 ranked Arizona Wildcats Sunday at 10 a.m. Coming off an impressive upset victory Wednesday, they downed the number 67 ranked Denver Pioneers 4-0 this past week. They have picked up underdog victories against Iowa and Denver this year, but have struggled in Pac-12 conference play. While they currently hold an in-conference record of 0-7, the Buffs will have 3 more opportunities to pick up a victory before heading to the Pac-12 championships on April 20th.
Now, we head into Brian Morathi for this week's edition of Buff Banner.
Thanks, Sam. What's good, Buffs? This week on Buff Banner, I'd like to honor an exemplary athlete in University of Colorado football history who recently passed away. Bill Harris was a star running back for the Buffs in the early 1960s. Earning the nickname Buffalo Bill, he led her 3 times from 1961 to 1963. He led the team in rushing as a junior with 582 yards in 1962 and is one of 56 players in school history to have rushed for over 1,000 yards in a CU career. His 2,411 all-purpose yards acquired through rushing, receiving, and returns is 32nd all-time. He was born on May 30th, 1942 in New Jersey and graduated from Hackensack High School, where he was considered to be one of the best running backs ever produced in northern New Jersey. He scored 290 career points, including 27 touchdowns as a junior in 1958. According to Bill's wife Sue, on his recruiting trip, Coach Sonny Grandelius picked him up from the airport in Denver and stopped at the crest of the turnpike into Boulder on the way to CU. When Bill took in the scenic overlook spot, he told Sonny, "This is for me," and the rest is history. Following his playing days at CU, Harris was drafted by the NFL's New York Giants in the 14th round and went on to play in the Canadian Football League for 3 years. He was also a U.S. Army veteran and served in Korea, where his assignments included patrolling the 38th parallel. His family relocated to Colorado in 2000 from Inglewood, New Jersey, where he resided since 1974. He was named Alumni C Club Director in May 2001 and served in the position for over 9 years, the longest tenure of anyone in the position since its creation in 1996. Bill was remembered by most as an outstanding person on and off the field. His wife, Sue, who he met in a class in Old Main, said that Bill just loved the University of Colorado. Bill's longtime friend, John Meadows, who was in the same recruiting class, said that Bill is one of the nicest, caring, and loyal friends one could ever have. Surrounded by family, Buffalo Bill Harris passed away on Tuesday in Marina del Rey, California, after a long illness. He was 79. A memorial service is in planning stages for later this spring. Everyone at ScoBuff Sports offers our condolences to the Harris family and hope that Bill's story can inspire Buffs for years to come. Back to you, Sam and Nikki.
Thanks, Brian. After the break, we'll cover some former Buffs basketball players taking on the national 3v3 tournament and the latest on the track and field team. Stick around, Buffs fans.
Former basketball Buffs were back in action at the 2022 Dos Equis 3v3U National Championship as Evan Batty, Deshaun Schwartz, and Jariah Horn competed against 64 of the other best seniors in college basketball in a 3v3 game to 21 for a share of a cash prize of $150,000. Everyone's favorite alumni Evan Batty and the Bad Boys team, 4 players made up of Pac-12 and Western Athletic Conference seniors, went 4-3 in pool play but couldn't get it done in the tournament, as they lost in the first round. Batty ended the tournament with 17 points and 21 rebounds in 7 games. Deshaun Schwartz, who transferred to CU in 2021 after 4 seasons, ended up taking home the bag as his turnaround jumper won the Beast Coast Ballers the 3v3 national champions.
Our Buffs track athletes will get the chance to beat their competitors at altitude this weekend. The CU Invitational begins tomorrow, and some Buffs are poised for great performances. Keep an eye out for Michaela DeJaneiro, last year's NCAA mile champion, who is making her debut in the 800-meter race. Eduardo Herrera will also be running in the 1500-meter race, which he won at the Indoor Championships a few weeks ago.
Abby Nichols was announced the Pac-12 Women's Athlete of the Week this past Tuesday. Nichols was the top collegiate finisher at the Stanford Invitational in the women's 5,000-meter run, with an NCAA leading time of 15 minutes and 27 seconds. Nichols and the rest of the Buffs will be competing at home this weekend at the 2022 Colorado Invitational.
Coming up next, we got a rapid fire from Emma Whitehead, as well as the answer to the trivia question. Don't go anywhere.
Who's the biggest Buff fan here?
Me! That guy.
School Buff.
Go Buffs, baby! We're all about the Buffs!
School Buff!
They can't contain us. We're the best. We can't be stopped.
Now we go to Emma Whitehead for this week's edition of Rapid Fire.
How you doing, Buffs? I'm Emma Whitehead. Welcome back to Rapid Fire. The school year might be winding down, but our Buff athletes are still hard at work. This week, the women's tennis team came out on top against 67th ranked Denver on Wednesday. This was the first time the Buffs have defeated them since 2015, and they did so in a perfect manner with a sweep. The women's tennis team is battling against Arizona State this afternoon. Looking ahead to upcoming events, track and field is hosting the CU Invitational, which began today and will continue tomorrow. You can catch the Buffs at Potts Field to cheer them on. And to wrap things up, tennis will compete again on Sunday morning at 10 against Arizona in Boulder. We also want to mention that the men's lacrosse team will face off with CSU, Rocky Mountain Showdown style, on April 16th at home. And it's going to be a good one, folks. Be sure to come to these events and show your support with all of the spring sports teams before the season wraps up in a few weeks. Back to you, Nikki and Sam.
Early in the show, we asked you this week's trivia question: which year were the most Buffs football players drafted in the NFL draft? And the answer you've all been waiting for: B, 1976. 11 athletes from that year's Colorado football squad were drafted to various teams throughout the NFL. 1995 came in at a close second with 10 drafted players.
This week's tweet of the week comes from Alec the King 42, as we see a picture of Deshaun Schwartz, Jariah Horn, and of course, the mayor of Boulder himself, Evan Batty, reunited at the 3v3U basketball national championships held recently. The last time this trio was together as basketball teammates here at CU, they contributed to a round of 32 berth in the NCAA tournament just over a year ago.
Well, that concludes this episode of Sco Buff Sports. It's going to be a warm weekend. Other than crying over Tiger this weekend, Sam, have any plans?
Well, I'll be sitting home watching the Yankees beat the Red Sox and studying for my accounting exam.
Ooh, definitely failed that class. Hopefully you took some notes from this tax season. Have a good night, everyone. And as always, Sco Buffs.